In this WrestleTalk news, a WWE star teases a character change, an update on Jeff Hardy returning to AEW, my review of SmackDown, Tempest review of Rampage, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
There's been a lot of change in WWE as of late, with Triple H enacting his will over the roster, and wholesale reverting wrestlers to being great again. Looking at you, Kevin Owens. This on top of bringing back several wrestlers, and now we may be getting another character change before long. It had already been teased in a WWE.com exclusive, but we saw arguably the first tease of a returning LA Knight on SmackDown, with the current Max Dupree introducing the show in Anaheim, California, which is just a stone's throw away from LA. After a pause, he looked away and was shaken back to what he was doing by Maxine Dupree. So, is she like brainwashing him? Has she taken over the minds of LA Knight, Mace, and Mansoor? Is she the big mastermind behind this evil plan of making them think they're supermodels? Is this where this is going? You know what? It sounds dumb. I'm in. LA Knight would just be the latest on a long list of changes, from Theory getting his Austin Mac to Ciampa getting his Tommaso, Kevin Owens powerbombing Ezekiel out of existence, etc. There may be some change coming to AEW as well, as we have an update on the status of Jeff Hardy. Hardy was arrested for a DUI in June and has entered a not guilty plea to the charge, and a trial will be held in October. But despite pleading not guilty, Hardy has reportedly been seeking the substance abuse treatment that was conditional for an AEW return that we might be seeing before long. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Jeff Hardy is expected to be out of rehab soon and back in the ring. This comes off the back of Matt Hardy teasing Jeff coming back before long as well, telling fans on his podcast to get ready to meet the new Jeff. Oh yeah, it's time we talk about that AEW backstage fight, because that's all the news lately. So in the latest version and potential retelling of what happened on that night, currently every version of events has it that CM Punk threw the first punch, aimed at Matt Jackson. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletter though, the Punk side of things claims this was to beat the Elite to the inevitable punch that Matt Jackson was going to throw, while the Elite side of things called it a sucker punch. The newsletter also clarified that Mega Parek, the chief legal officer of AEW, joined the Young Bucks, accompanying them to Punk's locker room. The belief was that she was there to keep things professional, which didn't happen, obviously, because if it was professional, we wouldn't still be talking about it. On Wrestling Observer Live, Brian Alvarez mentioned that the internal investigation with AEW regarding this backstage ruckus was nearing its end, and to expect news of the suspended AEW talent, being Punk, the Bucks, Omega, and Ace Steel, very soon. In other news, according to Fightful Select, WWE currently has nothing for Veer Mahaan. I guess he came too hard. And now it's time for my review of SmackDown in about 5 minutes. Thank you for being awesome pledge hammers on our Patreon page, Shield Maiden the Zornice, and Will the MS Warrior Stewart. You can get your own shoutout and loads of extra bonus content by visiting us at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. This show began with Logan Paul. Now listen, I'm not a huge fan of Logan's, but I was very impressed with his natural heelish charisma when he teamed with Miz at WrestleMania. Note that I said heelish. Regardless of how good his SummerSlam match was, Logan Paul just does not work as a babyface. The crowd booed him heavily here, which is par for the course. I would also say that his SummerSlam match was impressive and better than people were expecting for a newbie who isn't a professional wrestler. That bit is important to remember. Anyway, he's here to say, whoopsie poopsie, he did a bad and opened his mouth again, and he accidentally called out Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman made his return to SmackDown, being joined by the full bloodline, minus Reigns of course, and put over Logan Paul and his achievements before saying he absolutely should not face Reigns because he will die. The actual compelling bit of this story is the Bloodline Civil War brewing, which continued here, with Heyman calling a Solo Sikoa to the ring to take out Paul, but Sami Zayn got in and tried to smooth it over, making Solo back down, saying Heyman wasn't the right person for this job, to which Heyman threw away his mic and stormed out of the ring. Sami immediately got, I want to say knocked out, but it was more like he took a quick jab, courtesy of Paul, and Sami then had a match with Ricochet with the Bloodline and Logan Paul at ringside. I am not interested in seeing Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns. Reigns is at a period of his title reign where he had a true challenger in Drew McIntyre that believably could have dethroned him. so providing anything other than another legitimate challenger for his title feels like a huge step back. Whatever Logan Paul has done in WWE so far, and however impressive it's been, he is in no way on the totem pole close to a title shot for the undisputed Universal title. He faced The Miz at SummerSlam, just in case you forgot. Also, Crown Jewel, supposedly where this match is going to be happening, is at the beginning of November. And if this is a filler arc, as some people online have called it, that's a solid 7 weeks of filler. Crazy idea. Don't have filler arcs. Just an idea. The subsequent match with Zayn and Ricochet was pretty good, with an awful lot of stuff happening around the match. The Usos interfered, Logan Paul interfered, and evened the odds. But in the end, Jey Uso distracted the referee during a Sami Zayn pin, and Sami fired up, got in his face, which allowed Ricochet to get the win with the shooting star press. The continued descent of the bloodline was the most engaging part of this, but Ricochet gets another win, and we saw some babyface fire in Sami here, standing up to Jey. This was successful all round. Karrion Kross called out Drew McIntyre, and Maximum Male Models showed off their Back to School collection. In a very good bit of camera work here, Braun Strowman's music hit, Mansoor and Massey looked terrified but didn't turn around, just staring scared down the camera while we saw Braun's silhouette emerging and sprinting up behind them and taking them out. Braun beat both of them up, and he is absolutely just Wardlow at this point, hitting power bombs and playing to the crowd. Alpha Academy came out and tried to take out Braun, and Otis even hit the World's Strongest Slam on Braun, which Braun immediately no-sold, and which the crowd didn't seem too happy with. Braun versus Otis next week. I think that'll go about 30 seconds. Damage Control came out and celebrated their tag title win and were interrupted by Raquel Rodriguez, who wanted revenge for losing the titles and faced Bayley. The match itself was fine, which Bayley won after some heavy interference from Dakota Kai and Io Sky, like them hitting a bunch of moves and raking her eyes and all sorts. Shotzi saved Raquel from a post-match beatdown and is a babyface now, I guess. Cool. In a sit-down interview, Liv Morgan took over the place of Kayla Braxton and told Ronda Rousey that she doesn't respect her and she's going to have to do what she's done her whole career and overcome the odds that people put in front of her that no one thinks she can achieve. At Extreme Rules, she wants an Extreme Rules match with Rousey, to which Rousey said it's her funeral. This was solid stuff. Drew McIntyre cut a promo calling out Karrion Kross. Solo Sikoa then defended his newly won North American Championship against Madcap Moss, which I'm a big fan of. Not the Madcap Moss bit, but Solo defending his North American Championship on SmackDown only helps to elevate NXT, helps establish Solo in the eyes of the main roster fans as a champion, and a solid one at that, and helps to find his place in the bloodline. Before the match, another development in the Bloodline Civil War took place, with the Usos hyping up Solo, ready to go out and help him defend his belt. But he told them to stay behind, because Jey was off his game earlier, referring to how he cost Sami the match. But then, in a beautiful little twist, he invited Sami to come out to the ring with him instead. On one side, Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, Solo Sikoa. On the other, Paul Heyman and Jey Uso. And Jimmy Uso is just there and wants everyone to get along. I'm a huge fan of all of this, and it's these little details that will lead to something much bigger down the line. I really hope this isn't all for nothing. The match itself was fine, nothing super special, but gave Solo enough time to shine and get over his offense with the new audience, including a nice looking belly to belly and winning with his spinning Uranagi after some Sami Zayn interference. Would you look at that? People can beat Madcap Moss. Crazy how that works. It's like he could have beaten him this whole time and not sacrificed other people and done lame DQ finishes when it didn't work. It was good for Solo to get the win here, and though the title didn't need to be on the line, I thought it really helped add an element to this match, establishing Solo as a fighting champion, and of course the added cross-promotion with NXT is a bonus. The main event was a fatal 4-way #1 contenders match for the tag team titles. Didn't we see how this went on Raw? Someone check on Braun, where is he? Also, the teams were different in this one for some reason. I'm not sure on the justification of these teams being in these matches, but hey, it's fine, I guess. Hit Row, New Day, Imperium, and Brawling Brutes is a fun enough lineup, and man, Sheamus being over has really helped the Brawling Brutes. They got big cheers on their entrance, and people were into them during the match, so thanks, Sheamus. Also, while I expected this match to be a bit of fun, I was not expecting this level of fun. There were some brilliant spots in this one, with Top Dollar teasing diving to the outside before being cut off, another one involving Top Dollar having 2 men on his shoulders while holding another on his front, and making it look easy, which is absurd. But then we got another development on that spot when Ridge Holland got top dollar up for an Alabama slam and the crowd went ballistic. This match perfectly built on all of its previous spots and made everyone feel important. And Imperium looked like they had the match won, hitting the Imperium bomb, but Ridge tagged himself in and stole the pin for the win, where the copyright logo flashed up immediately, and Michael Cole hurriedly said, Usos versus Brawling Brutes next week, as the show ended. So they might have gone a little over time there, but still, I would have preferred Brawling Brutes to get the win outright under their own power, rather than stealing the pin off someone else's move. But regardless, this was a bit of a sleeper banger of a main event, and I had a great time. Overall, this SmackDown was a mixed bag. I am not into any of the Logan Paul stuff. I am very into the Bloodline stuff. The main event was great, and the Damage Control and Morgan Rousey stuff was fine. I did like that the stuff on this show got some time to breathe, and there were a handful of stories focused on rather than like 10, so this show for me gets a high 3 out of 5. Which is still significantly higher than any SmackDown of old pre-Triple H, which I feel like is a disclaimer I'm gonna need to say for a while. Now, hot tag to Tempest.
Oh, Rampage, I know we've been fighting lately, but I've missed waking up on Saturday and seeing your face. Let's never fight again. We opened this edition of Rampage with Darby Allin taking on Matt Hardy, and this was actually a very fun opener, I thought. I like that Darby's great suicide dive seems to be getting countered more frequently these days, as Matt caught him with a forearm shot before being pushed into the stairs. Darby hit the Jeff Hardy pose before missing a swanton bomb on the apron, leading more credence to the idea that we'll be seeing Jeff again before long. Matt worked over Darby's back until he missed a moonsault, and isn't it incredible that Matt Hardy can still do a moonsault at this stage of his career, which allowed Darby to hit a code red and lock in the Last Supper for the win. I really enjoyed this one. Matt and Darby showed each other respect before and after the match, but as Darby exited stage right, the lights went out and Brody King decapitated Matt Hardy with a lariat. He called out Darby and Sting and challenged them to a no DQ match in Arthur Ashe, while he choked out Matt before disappearing again. Really strong opening segment, and I'm glad to see the House of Black not being put on the back burner after the departure of Malachi Black. I'd also reckon the Hardys versus the House will be first on the docket when Jeff makes his inevitable return. 4 out of 5. Eddie Kingston does a pre-recorded promo calling out Sammy Guevara for a match next week. I thought we were just dropping this storyline, but I'm glad to see these two putting their differences aside for the sake of the match. Oakley dokley then. We then got a promo from Claudio Castagnoli, who tried to give a pep talk to Wheeler Yuta and appeared to be setting up a match between them and FTR for the ROH tag titles when he was interrupted by Chris Jericho. Jericho says he's been a world champion in AEW, WWE, and WCW. Bit of a half-truth there, but he's never been world champion in Ring of Honor and challenges Claudio to a title match in Arthur Ashe, which Claudio accepts. I had kind of thought we'd put the bulk of the JAS-BCC rivalry behind us, but on the other hand, Claudio and Jericho is a fresh match, and it is just so surreal to see Chris Jericho fight for the Ring of Honor World Championship. Excited for the match, but this was just a solid promo. 3 out of 5. Diamante challenged Jade Cargill to a match in Arthur Ashe. I'm sure she'll win. We then had Willow Nightingale taking on Penelope Ford, and at this point, considering the lack of current challengers for Jade, I would really like to see Willow be built up until she eventually dethrones her. Make a new star. Willow is great. In this match, JR made a point to say that Willow kept being put at a disadvantage because she was missing her own offense rather than being hit with Penelope's, and that meant Willow had great upside. A good way to put her over, even in defeat, I thought. Eventually, Penelope locked in the Muda Lock, and Willow was forced to tap out. I'd have to think Penelope will be a TV challenger for Toni Storm at some point, and this was a good way to give her a win. 3 out of 5. Push Willow. It's announced that next week we'll have a golden ticket battle royal for a shot at the AEW World Championship, and I really think the rankings are pretty much useless at this point. The Dark Order make up after the finish of their all-out match before Jose and Rush walk up and say Dark Order does all the work for Hangman, only for him to fail. Hangman versus Rush sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. Ethan Page had a really fun, albeit quick squash match against Danhausen. He mocked Danhausen's curse pose. No pose is safe this week, my god. And hit an awesome Ego's Edge for the win. Not too shabby, and good to see Ethan getting a win. 3 out of 5. Ricky Starks tells Powerhouse Hobbs he's done talking and we'll see him at Arthur Ashe. And then we had our main event match for the ROH TV Championship between Samoa Joe and Josh Woods. Big man versus big man matches can sometimes end up being not very good, but thankfully, neither of these guys wrestle what is the traditional big man style, with Joe being a lot more agile and using loads of strikes, while Woods utilizes a much more amateur-based grappling style. This match was a little clunky in parts, with Woods hitting a fireman's carry knee strike that Jim Ross described as bowling shoe ugly, which might as well be code for "you sure f***ed that one up, King." Joe was able to fight off the constant interference from Mark Sterling and Tony Nese to make a brief comeback, hitting a Uranagi out of the corner and the Muscle Buster for the win. After the match, the heels surrounded the ring and Wardlow made the save, setting up Joe and Wardlow versus Nese and Woods for next week, as we went off the air with Joe and Wardlow having a stare down. That will be a very fun match when it happens, and boy did I miss having Samoa Joe on my screen every week. One of the biggest acquisitions AEW has made this year, and just hasn't really been given a chance to get off the ground yet. A high 3 out of 5 main event, I would say, to cap off a high 3 out of 5 show. This was a very entertaining show as a whole, but there wasn't any one particular thing you really needed to go out of your way to see. Oh, Rampage. Let's never fight again.